I greet the participants of the International Congress of the World Psychiatric Association. I'm the founder of non-profit organization Outsiderville. My name is Olga Fominih. It's a great honor for me to tell you about the project through immersion into the world of Russian outsider art. We are now at the exhibition of artworks by outsider artists, words of our organization, under the meaningful name PodRamki, what means in English UnderFrames, which is held as part of the Congress of Russian Psychiatrists. At first, I would like to say a few words about our project. Outsiderville, based in St. Petersburg, but we carry out our activities throughout Russia. We were opened in 2013 and actively helps people with mental disorders in a difficult situation and in social rehabilitation through art, therapy and creativity. We support outsider artists and introduce their artworks to the public. Our task is not only to provide vital support to artists, but also to create tools for material self-sufficiency by creativity. You have an opportunity to buy their artworks for the benefit to artists. We cooperate with art studios in psychiatric hospitals, independent outsider artists, social and cultural institutions in Russia and abroad. Hold projects and programs aimed at education about mental health, increase psychological culture, level of tolerance in society, and make socio-cultural support to talented artists. Provide technical equipment, artistic and other materials, attract necessary resources. We hold events at all Russian level. Art exhibitions, festivals, workshops, lecturers, art sessions, film screening, etc. Also, we form own collection of outsider art. We are the members of European Outsider Art Association and participants of Outsider Art Fair. Now I would like to go over the exhibition and tell a little about its content. In spite of chamber space, this exhibition is very capacious and indicative. Here are the works of 17 residents of Outsiderville from different cities. But they are not all the artists supervised by the project. Among the permanent residents, there are more than 50 artists, from very young to elderly age, with different social and psychiatric status. There are also a pool of emerging creators from Outsiderville, overseas and supports until the debut. There are about 150 artists. And there are also periodic remote and face-to-face contacts with potential project participants, more than 500 people a year. It's difficult to overestimate the potential of outsider art as an emerging independent part of the art market. Why do we call the creators as outsider artists? Initially, the first term was coined in 1945 by French artist Jean Dubuffet in order to reflect the inner content of his collection of works created by mentally ill, socially disabled people. Dubuffet believed that such art is most honest, devoid and out of stereotypes. The term outsider art was introduced by Roger Cardinal in 1972 and was originally intended to act as an English synonym to Dubuffet's term. Over the years, it has been used increasingly loosely and can often now refer to any artist who is entrained or with disabilities or suffering social exclusion, whatever the nature of their work. Examples: Adolf Wolfli, Bill Trailer, Schroeder Sonnenstern, Ferdinand Cheval, Simone Rodia. Creativity and mental distress often go hand to hand. Rubel, Rothko, Van Gogh, Edvard Munch, and many others world-renowned artists suffered a mental illness that has strongly influenced in their art. They often pose challenges and let them tap into hidden wells of emotions in their works. Despite the fact that outsider art in Russia takes a confident position in context of contemporary art, there are still many myths, pseudo-scientific interpretations, stigmatization around its representatives. Moreover, speculative interpretations are inherent not only to the unprepared public, but also the professional environment, specialists in the field of psychiatry and art critics. In this line, we sorely lack both psychoeducational projects and pure art experiments. We do not seek to create a canonical image of an outsider artist, and do not undertake to defend the purity of definitions. Outsiderville is in the epicenter of process of institutionalization of outsider art and socio-cultural life of artists, who are not limited in thinking and fantasy, unable to drive under frameworks, but facing many barriers due to mental disorders. We often say a tube of paint can save someone's lives, and in this case, our words, it makes a literal sense. Outsiderville residents, not just words, but beautiful people with amazing vision at their world. This creative works and perception of the world is a huge resource for society. Now I'll tell you a little about artists presented in this exhibition. Yuri Shenkov lives in Saransk. It's a very heavy city with high suicide statistics. Yuri saves himself with art and sometimes makes performances with friends. He likes to paint graffiti on city objects and as anonym, and then show these works to people as works of unknown artists. He likes to make art objects out of his younger brother's broken toys. In his work, the artist expresses youthful immediacy, a pure creative beginning, not limited to any professional institutions and unions, canons and systems, and decodes seemingly absurd messages. We call him modern Van Gogh. Nikolai Minov is 24 years old and lives in Yalta, Crimea. Perhaps secondary technical education in specialty of gas and electric welding would have led him to create the world of abstract constructional compositions. He visualizes original images and ideas using unique polychrome geometric shapes and plain materials, paper and colored pencils. The artist's attention is attracted by geometry and biology as a science about the universe. He's interested in geometric regular figures, the theme of proportions and harmony in art. He calls his extraordinary artworks as construams. Sarah Hertzman was born in 1991 in a small provincial town and then moved to Moscow with her family. She has been suffering from a mental disorder since childhood. Until the age of 20, she tried to cope with it on her own, but then decided to seek help from specialists. Sarah is proud that her father is a Jew. That is why she attends the community to speak with a rabbi and gets to know the Jewish culture. For several years, she has been living independently and working as a graphic designer. She often encounters the stigmatization of people with mental disabilities, so she speaks up about her own experiences and helps other young people with mental health problems to cope with difficulties that come their way. In addition to drawing and creating collages, Sarah travels, takes photos, keeps guinea pigs and love cats. Alina Skhavrebova was born in 1981 in Kuybyshev. But as a child, she moved to Samara with her family. From the age of 4, Alina was sent to the studio where she studied dance, music, English, art. She chose drawing already at time, telling her mother that she would be an artist. At the age of 7, she began to attend a children's art school. In children's camps and schools, she constantly designed wall newspapers and posters. Alina's first exhibition was organized by her favorite teacher. After a while, Alina said goodbye to the fine art and went to work as hairdresser. But after several months of hard work without days off, she ended up at the hospital. After that, she again returned to creativity and already finally. Whatever jobs she tried, she always turned to art. Over the years, she had tried many techniques, materials and surfaces to paint on, from old furniture, boxes and walls to canvases and designer retro dolls. Liza Kratinova was born in 1974 in Vladivostok, and later, together with her sister, they moved to St. Petersburg and graduated from the medical university. Liza started painting in 2006. When a disease was discovered, she went to study wood painting artist, but didn't finish her studies. With her artworks, Liza tries to tell the viewer that a modern person is a part of common aesthetic space, and if he can draw, he can harmonize this space a little. Liza uses all the limitless possibilities of cultural development of St. Petersburg, often sometimes 50 to 20 times a month, attending exhibitions and concerts, a conservatory, a philharmony and theaters. Together with her sister, they wrote a book about St. Petersburg communal apartment, shared her observations on the behavior of different psychotypes of people with whom they live 20 hours a day. Nadia Bokman was born in Bratsk in 1977. At the age of 7, her family moved to St. Petersburg. The girl didn't like school, and she prefers to spend her time in parents' library, read Greek myths, study Middle Ages and Renaissance. She studied wood painting and graduated from college with honors. Nadezhda paints since 2002, often accompanying her works with poetry, in part an aspiration to creativity arose thanks to the support of her mother, who was an intelligent person of high culture. Maybe because of mother's influence, the artist pays great attention to women's portraits. Liza Khudikova was born in Tula region. She suffers from schizoaffective disorder, lupus and other diseases. Due to frequent hospitalization, drawing became the only way to Liza to experience positive emotions and express her feelings. At first, Liza switched from graphite pencil to colored pencils, then to oil pastel, which inspires her and makes her style so distinct to this day. Over the past couple of years, she has grown a lot, including thanks to socialization, moved to Moscow and lives there with a loved one. Now there is an exhibition of outsider artists who won the EU World 8 international competition in Haus der Kunst, Munich. Out of more than 300 applicants, the jury has chosen 20 artists, among which Liza is only one artist from Russia. Mikhail Zaika was born in Moscow in 1981. Since childhood, he felt that he someone deviates from the norm and has a defective way of thinking. He learned school subjects with ease and even studied some way ahead of school program, reading university books. The young man became passionate of arts at an early age because of visiting museums. From the mid-80s, Mikhail's health has deteriorated. The atmosphere of those years, alongside with personality disorders, led to problems with the law and long compulsory hospitalization by a court decision. 20 years after, Mikhail cannot think of those times without shedding a tear. His return to Orthodox Christianity had a visible impact on his artworks. In 2020, after 20 years, Mikhail returned to worldly life and now builds many plans for future. Sergey Fedulov was born in Leningrad. Now he lives near St. Petersburg. Sergey began to draw from an early age. The first memories are how he draws on the walls at 3 years. His grandfather, an artist, encouraged the beginnings of his grandson and allowed him to create an any surface area with any art materials. After school, Sergey enters the Restoration College and studies restoration of building facades, but he never finished education. He became aware himself as an artist since 2014. Sergey is interested in science fiction. He reads a lot and prone a supernatural interpretation of social collisions. In his work, you can meet Napoleon and Stalin in one place. He believes in perfect communism that can exist somewhere in space. The love to animals is reflected in the artwork, so his favorite cat, Masyana, becomes the one of the sustainable characters of creative works. His works participate in Serbian Triennale of Naive and Marginal Art. Dmitry Naga, that means leg, is creative pseudonym. Real name of artist is Yekaterina. He was born in 2001 in the arms capital of Russia, Izhevsk city. He started education as a designer, but constantly wanted to leave his studies because he doesn't like to draw and in the absence of inspiration and desire. He likes to ride a skateboard. He was fond of music, wrote songs for guitar and played to his friends. He often leaves for other cities because he doesn't like to sit still. Dmitry is a gambling adventurer, a lover of the life in all its manifestation, a hunter of risky situation and an impeccable nonconformist. Andrei Vilov was born in 1962 in Moscow. His father was self-taught artist. Due to the mood swings, he couldn't finish studies and 3 to 4 universities. He worked as a loader, a tunneler in metro, driller in Kazakhstan, worker on expeditions in the far north, a gamekeeper. Later, he moved to the Yaroslavl region. He lived alone and actively engaged in self-medication, physical education, draws. Plots of his works are devoted to humanoids, UFOs, fantastic inventions, humorous situations. Adheres to the rule, better to be the first in the hospital than the last in the Louvre. Gena Sich was born in 1978 in Kaliningrad. From his youth, he was repeatedly treated in psychiatric hospitals. In the same period, he began to paint at the art studio. In the early 2000s, trying to get rid of drug addiction, sentenced himself to exhausted creative pursuits, painted all day long. In his graphics, he often used stories from the mythology of Aztecs. In remission, he became a good family man. Today, working as janitor, he picks up felt cheap pens and dilutes them with vodka, but he doesn't drink himself. Iliad Zaryov was born in Omsk in a family of sailors. Since childhood, he was engaged in various sports: swimming, football, tennis. He graduated from the Faculty of Philosophy and Cultural Studies and Faculty of Management Systems. Despite the addition to the humanities, the future artist had to work as technical specialist at a secret factory or as a laborer. At the age of 21, Ilya moved to St. Petersburg, rented a one-room apartment and began to try his hand at prose. Then began to get involved in music and learn various instruments. He picked up a brush in 2016. During this time, he managed to change many specialties: sales manager, telecommunications specialist, legal assistant. Ilya has published his own book, Lessons of Freedom, over the past 5 years. Studied playing the piano, saxophone, flute, created his own musical group, psychedelic band, and write experimental albums. Andrei Symbol grew up in Uzbekistan, former Soviet Republic. Imprints of Middle East culture and Bollywood movies are strong reminiscences in his artworks. Years has passed, his family moved to Yaroslavl. He worked as an agriculturist and got married. Chernobyl disaster at 1986 and Soviet Union collapse led Andrei to psychiatric treatment. Its color graphics, symmetrical patterns and images in form of mandalas tell about human connection with nature and human values. As a romantic and idealist, he tries to combine orthodoxy with the best tradition of the communism past. Andrei's miraculous art is close with famous African artist Minnie Evans. Alexander Savchenko. Alexander was born in 1956 in Kungur, and a year later he moved to Veliki Novgorod with his family. From childhood, exemplified in exemplary behavior and outstanding abilities. He was the commander of the school army detachment, the leader of the class, the secretary of Komsomol organization, parachuted, visited numerous workshops. Because of the exorbitant loads, young Sasha's health shook over time. He was addicted to drawing already at the age of 12. But after 2 years, he decided to get a job and began his career on factory. After a while, the creativity began to break the routine, and Alexander enters the director college. Then he finds himself in the restoration workshop. Throughout his life, the artist manifests himself in all sorts of forms. He writes poetry, receives sports, visits monasteries. Despite the impressive age, eye disease and financial difficulties, the artist managed to regularly travel by train to Petersburg, Moscow and other cities to demonstrate his artworks and visit local shrines and attractions. Maria Malamashina was born in Leningrad in 1971. She began to draw on her own. For some time, she worked as an animator. She created her own fashionable outfits and often walked them around the city. In the creativity, different periods are clearly traced, which is associated with changes in the state of health. The artist is most interested in the mirror of the soul, human face. She loved to interbreed different historical eras and characters. For example, modern media personalities can reincarnate as King Ludovic or hero of a literary work. For example, in this work is by Leonardo DiCaprio in form of a devil. She called her creations as thought forms. She began to paint with gouache and pastels on pieces of cardboard boxes, then began to collect boards from trash cans and paint with homemade oil. This made the paintings more mysterious. Maria's works are often associated with the work of Dali, but her portrait style is more serious than parody. In the summer of 2020, Maria passed away, and this is a big loss for the art world. Valentin Simonkov was born in Smolensk in 1962, moved to St. Petersburg and entered a Leningrad Art College at the direct faculty. Then he quickly dropped out, believing that any education destroys the artist. In love with St. Petersburg, he was fond of photography and explored the city. Soon Valentin married, and the first daughter was born. In many photographs of this period demonstrated fragments of family happiness. However, he falls under the influence of alcohol and drugs, as a result of which difficulties in relations begin. Throughout his life, Valentin had 6 daughters and 2 sons. He always refused to talk about it, interesting the remark, "I am childless, and by the way, we all are children." Due to family difficulties, upheavals and substance abuse, in the early 90s, Valentin turns to religion. During this period, a recognizable style of photo brute artist appeared. Multi-layered collage based on own photographs, elements of books, newspapers, scraps of household items, graphics and letters with humorous inscriptions or poetic comments. Valentin is a legendary man, a symbol of St. Petersburg. For many years, he could often be found next to the Savior on Blood, selling easily recognizable photo collages for a penny. He despises digital photography and says, "When I shoot, I see the God. When you do it, you just click." His artworks are in foreign collections, including ABCD, Galerie Arthur Barnier, and etc. I hope it was interesting to you to plunge into the wonderful world of Russian outsider art. Thank you for your attention. We are open to cooperation and welcome to Outsiderville.